And then the other piece of it is you have to consistently say and act in your actions that this is not a hammer.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenley, and welcome to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we have an amazing interview ahead of us, but before we want to get into that, I want to tell you a little bit more about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show. Sometimes, like today, we have interviews with industry thought leaders and experts who are shaking up the space, and they're going to teach you how to do something that they do that's really helped them be successful. Sometimes we're going to cover trending topics, items that recruiters are talking about or will be very soon, what those things mean for them. Every Tuesday, we're going to drop a Tactical Tuesday episode. We're going to go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. Sometimes we'll open it up, Q&A. Listeners can drop in questions they'd like to hear us take on. Send those over to podcast@loxo.co. And lastly, my favorite, occasionally you're going to hear what I call a mic drop episode from Matt, where he's going to share something that's been bouncing around in his head about the recruitment space and really things that you all need to know about. So enough about all that. Today, I've got an incredible guest joining us for a conversation. So a little background here. Over 20 years of experience in the recruiting space, from regional recruiting manager at Applebee's to the president of HRU Technical Resources to self-proclaimed amateur chat GPT prompt engineer to podcast co-host on HR Famous. I think, honestly, he's seen and done it all at this point. And today he's going to go deep with us on how to measure the recruiting funnel and use it to drive outcomes. Before you say it, I know, like the recruiting funnel. Yeah, I'm with you. I thought the show was here to teach us something new or different that many of us don't do. But here's the thing. He's going to be the first to tell you that while this is something we all talk about, most people don't really understand how to really do this well, why they're doing it, and why it is so important to be doing in their day-to-day. So enough from me. With that, I want to introduce today's guest, Tim. Tim, how's it going?
It's great. Sam, you can't believe the number of LinkedIn requests I get because of the amateur GPT prompt engineer thing. Literally from news outlets wanting to interview me because I work for OpenAI, even though I don't work for OpenAI, to investment of AI companies coming to me looking for investment to advise you. Like some idiot can't read and go, he's literally having a joke on his LinkedIn profile saying he's an amateur chat GPT prompt engineer. And they take that and literally, it's 10 to 25 a week that I'm getting from people,
That's impressive. Yeah, it's like I still get in my About Me section, I say the things that I wanted to be when I was growing up. One of them was a physical therapist. I get recruiters reaching out to me all the time like, hey, we're trying to fill this physical therapy role. I'm like, did you spend more than 2 seconds aside from scraping my profile to see what I actually do?
Nope.
So yeah, that's hilarious that you get those. You should take them up on this and be like, yeah, I do. I offer advisory. My hourly rate's about, 10 grand, 10 grand a half hour.
I did a podcast last week where a guy said he didn't even care. He was just like, no, really, I'd love to have a conversation with you about this. Like, sure, let's do it.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Sarcasm is a dying art that some people can't read through anymore.
It's so funny.
So cool. Well, let's jump. Maybe we'll get back to ChatGPT later on, but let's set the scene. Like you've got, I call it an interesting point of view on the topic, but it's also such a fundamental point of view. So like the recruiting funnel, using it to drive outcomes. Tell me a little bit more.
Like you talk about like, this is like table stakes, right? For recruiting, whether you're in corporate or agency or RPO, like this just seems like everybody's doing this. We've been doing this forever. Everybody does. What I find, so I work without, I'd say a lot. Like about 10 times a year, I'll take an engagement with an enterprise level TA shop, or whatever it might be. Right. And usually it's a leader coming to me, and they usually come to me in a couple of ways. One would be, oh my gosh, Tim, we need a new ATS. What do you recommend? And then I'll just like, hey, what are you currently using? And they usually say they're like, oh, well, we're using Luxo, right? And I'm like, oh, that's what I use. and you're like, well, wait a minute. So why? And it comes down to it's not the technology at all, right? It's actually, they can't get their recruiters to actually recruit, or they're not having success recruiting. There's something broken. And what I find is mostly it's never the technology. It might be the implementation of the technology, the use of the technology, but it's not the actual technology. Or they have enough self-insight to just to go, look, we're just broken, right? Can you help us? And so, and most of these companies are 25,000 above. Sometimes like I just started working with one that's 5,000. It's all corporate TA leaders. And so when I talk about the funnel It sounds like I'm talking about agency, but the reality is I've used it when I ran global TA for Applebee's. I've run TA for a large health system. Like I use this in corporate just like I use it in agency. So the funnel, I don't have some like magical funnel that nobody has. You're talking about top of funnel candidates coming in from job boards, from your career site, from, basically sourcing any way you get all of those top of funnel people into the job you have. From there, a recruiter, maybe some matching technology is going to whittle that down. Maybe you have some assessment, whittle it down a little bit more. You're going to screen some people, and then you're going to after you screen some people, you're going to send those on to a hiring manager who's going to decide how many of these people am I going to interview. They're going to interview, then they're going to make an offer, and then they're going to hire. That's your funnel. It's not a magical funnel. It's the same funnel we see in recruiting and sales. It's the funnel. So here's where I'm a bit different is if you truly measure your funnel by individual and by company, you're going to come up with really dynamic numbers that show you what it takes to actually do the work that you need to do, not just from an individual standpoint, but from organizationally, you'll come up with this capacity number, right? So, and there's a real importance about this. But before we get to capacity, let's talk about individual. So people, they'll tell me they measure the funnel, and then I'll start to dig in and ask questions about, okay, well, what do you do with this information? And they tend to like, well, we measure the funnel, but we don't do anything with it, right? Every single Monday, every single week of the year, and again, depending on where holidays fall, we might move it to a Tuesday, right? Or something like that. But 52 weeks a year, I have a recruiting team meeting with my recruiters, and we are looking at their funnel activity from the week prior. And then we're also analyzing their priorities for the next week. And this is the entire team is together. So like we just had this on Monday, I had 12 recruiters in the room. Actually, I probably had 6 recruiters in the room. I had 6 recruiters on Zoom because we have the hybrid work. We actually work our recruiters in a way that we now know where they're most effective. So if you come to me, Sam, and you're a recruiter for me and you go, I want to work remotely, I have all of your numbers and I can tell where's the most effective way for you to work. And if you actually work better remotely, I'm like, don't ever come into this office. I'll fire you. You only work remotely, but if you work well hybrid or you work well in office, whatever that is, that's how we let our people work. So again, we have 12 recruiters in the meeting on Monday, and I'm looking at a spreadsheet. And by the way, they also have this exact same spreadsheet. Every single recruiter, and then every single recruiter's individual funnel. They all can see each other, very transparent. And they'll say, okay, Sam is one of the recruiters. Sam had 12, candidates that he actually sent out to hiring managers. Of those, this is how many turned into interviews. Of those, this is how many turned into offers, whatever. And everybody has their goals, right? And what you realize, and again, so I try to tell people, like, if you're going to measure the funnel is not about it being a hammer. It's about development. Like every single recruiter I hire, I never go, oh my God, I can't wait to fire you, right? Like that's not how, when I hire somebody, I'm like, I can't wait for you to be amazing. And we're going to do everything we can to help you be amazing. And then, so we take a look at the funnel as in, it's like, wow, Sam, you sent 15 screen candidates out to hiring managers. So 15 people that you truly thought were high quality, right for the job, and that they should be getting an interview, and you got 0 interviews. That's a problem. It tells me a couple of things. One is you're either sending out low quality people. And again, there's a lot of reasons that could happen, right? One is you might just be terrible as a recruiter, not have a good eye yet. Maybe you're young. Maybe the pay rate or the location or the combination of all this isn't to where the market is. And so these are the best quality of candidates you can actually find for this job. Or maybe the hiring manager and you just don't have a great relationship and they don't trust that the people they're finding. There's all these reasons of why these that we're not getting these great ratios. Because what I'll tell people is, especially in a corporate environment, it's different for agency, but in corporate environment, if I'm a great recruiter and I have great hiring manager relationships, I should be getting a 90% ratio to the people I send to my hiring managers to interviews. And really what I would say is you should actually have 100, because what I would say, let's say you're my hiring manager, Sam, and I have a great relationship. I know exactly what you need and you have full trust in me that I know what you need. then if I send you somebody, automatically, you shouldn't even tell me you want to interview them. You should actually I should just say, hey, Sam, I'm sending you a person, the interview's on your calendar for Friday, right? And that should be the relationship we have because we have so much trust. What we find is most corporate recruiters maybe have a 30% ratio. And so we're still allowing these hiring managers to believe that they can just push back and go, yeah, send me some more. Send me some more. Like there's this never ending cycle of candidates out there. And what it is a giant waste of resources, right? For talent acquisition for the organization. Now, in agency world, it's a little bit different because you might be in a competition environment, you might be in a VMS environment, MSP. There's all kinds of reasons why those numbers should be down lower than that 90 or 100%. But the reality is we're having these conversations every single Monday. So somebody's going and saying, hey, I had a terrible week. I was only able to find 9 or 10 candidates that were good quality that I wanted to send on. Somebody might be having a great week and they're like, I sent out 17 and I had 9 interviews and 7 offers and blah, blah, blah. The other thing we find out there is like, hey, and I actually had this conversation like probably like 2 years ago where I lost my mind and had this rant in the meeting, the Monday meeting, where somebody said, oh yeah, I had 7 interviews last week, but only 4 showed because of ghosting. And I said, no, you only had 4 interviews. And they go, no, I had 7, only 4 of them showed. I go, no, you only had 4 interviews. An interview doesn't count if the person doesn't show up. You can't be that stupid. Like it's just that's not how this happens.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's another topic for another day right there. But I wish I could unpack the last 5 minutes of everything you said. There's so many good points in there that I want to go and talk more about. So one of the things that really jumped out to me is one, like those ratios and trust in your recruiting team, like that 90% to 30%, that's a massive range. And like, if you're hiring someone, especially like when you're in-house, you should have that relationship with the person or be able to say, hey, hey, Ben, Steve, Jenny, whoever your name is, it's like, what's going on? I'm just not, we're not seeing eye to eye on this. So one, that's a conversation there. Another tangent that is interesting to me is how you do look at, go ahead.
No, stay right there though on that one point, because I think it's super important for the TA leaders listening to this, people, because they always like, well, how do you get there? And I'm like, well, so my job as a TA leader is just to make my recruiters better and more effective and make the organization's TA more effective, right? So if I have a hiring manager where the recruiter comes back and says like, hey, I know what you're saying, Tim. I know I should be getting 4 out of 5 interviews of the people I sent to this hiring manager, but this person just won't. I have to go then to that hiring manager and go, dude, what the hell's going on? And if you don't trust this recruiter knows, then you and that recruiter need to spend more time with each other. You need to have them on your team and your team meetings. They need to really understand what you guys are looking for so that, you can build that trust, because we are burning cash for you right now for no reason. By the way, I've had this conversation where I had like a really, really high level engineering leader that was doing this to our recruiters. And I actually invited our CEO into the conversation because I wanted the CEO to hear this engineering manager basically tell them why he thought it was fine for him to burn through cash like this. And we immediately went from like 20% ratio to 100% ratio. Because what I said was, look, if you interview people that you believe are awful, that my recruiters are sending you, I'll fire those recruiters and I'll get you better recruiters. But I know for a fact that my recruiters are only sending you people they truly believe are of good quality and meet the specifications you're looking for. And then they're having conversations with, and they're assessing, and they're going through all this stuff. They're doing a lot of work to get you really good people. And I think that's the miss there by TA leaders, because they always want to blame the recruiters, and we never want to hold these hiring managers accountable to what's really going on.
Yeah. So were they just looking at the resume and then saying, nah, I'm good? And after all that due diligence,
great example is we had this was actually to the CEO, where the CEO was looking for an executive, and I had an executive recruiter. I mean, literally spent like 4 weeks, came up with 3 amazing candidates. I mean, these candidates were perfect on paper. Sent them to the CEO. Within 5 minutes, emailed me back and said, no. And so we went out, and I went to the recruiter, didn't tell her that he said no. I said, can you get me some video clips? And here's the 3 questions I want you to ask of each one of these candidates. And then I went back to the CEO and said, hey, I have 3 new candidates, but I don't have resumes, but we actually are trying this new thing. I have videos for you. He saw all 3 videos and said, these people are amazing. I want to interview all 3.
I love that. That's
Now,
incredible.
but now I was in trouble, right? Because I had to go, oh, by the way, these are the 3 people you turned down on paper. And he wasn't super excited that I did that to him. But he completely understood. Like I had enough relationship with him, right? That he was like, okay, don't do that again. Be honest with me, but I understand my own bias now. And okay, let's interview these people. And we hired one, and she was our chief nursing officer. She was amazing. So
that's phenomenal. And sometimes, not to go down a tangent with you, but sometimes execs get in their own heads, or they want to be in the weeds sometimes and be like, I'm the best recruiter, I'm the best marketer, I'm the best sales rep. And the reality is like, trust your team. This is what you brought them on for. Just give them the little bit of wiggle room. If you've hired them and you truly believe that they're good at what they do, go with it, versus being like, let me weigh in my 2 cents and completely change up the strategy or wherever we're going with it. So interesting.
So let's stay tactical. So back to the meeting, because again, I think this is so core to this funnel conversation. And so what do we do in the meeting, right? Yep. We see the data. There's no hiding the data. Everybody has the data. It's all transparent. And then what we have is this conversation. We have the conversation around, hey, is there positions that you're struggling on? We actually have like a sheet that we give them, right? That they come to the meeting with. Every single person has a chance to talk in the meeting. Doesn't have a chance. Every single person will talk in the meeting. It becomes like, okay, Tim, it's your turn. Tell us about your week, right? Good, bad, ugly. Tell us what you're struggling with. And then, what's your prioritization for the next week, so that, because what happens is a lot of times recruiters will be talking to somebody and they're just like, oh, you're not the right person for me. But if they don't really know what everybody else is working on, they don't know how they could help somebody else. Or they might have talked to somebody 6 months ago or a year ago, and somebody's like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling right now to find a physical therapist and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh my gosh, call Susie, blah, blah, blah. I'll send you the link. I know I have her in the system, she would be amazing. And I know, even though she's in Texas, I know she's from Michigan and was looking to get back. Don't know if she's available, but maybe that will help you, right? So these conversations become really valuable. I think the other thing we see is like when you have a recruiter who's struggling to meet their numbers, to go, and something's going on in their funnel. A lot of times those community of recruiters, they've been through that and they'll support them. They'll help them. They'll encourage them. So we have our Monday morning meeting, right? And then Tuesdays for us, it happens to be a big in-office meeting for some reason, or a big in-office day. So most of the recruiters are in office for the day. And you walk out and you hear 9 or 10 recruiters like all talking on the phone at the same time. There's a power to that. It's another thing that we do to help brand new recruiters is when new recruiters come in, they always think everybody's listening to them. And so they get super nervous to get on the phone and call candidates and talk to candidates. And so we'll do like segments where we'll go, hey, from 10 to 11 tomorrow, every single recruiter is going to be calling candidates at that time. And all of us will get on the phone and do it all at the same time. Because then the new recruiter feels like they just don't, like they hear the motion, they hear everyone talking, and they don't feel nervous then to be on the phone, right? So it shows them like, hey, everybody does this. Everybody can do this. It's fine. But again, I think that whole funnel activity, part of this also is that we have a certain goal where you go, look, you have to have 12 candidates that are screened high quality, sent to hiring managers every single week based on the job openings you have. Now, that's an agency model I'm in now, but I also did the same thing when I said, okay, hey, you're, on the corporate side. And the corporate side, you have to understand, again, you have to build that funnel because you might have, like let's say when I was in the health system, I had somebody that was in charge of hourly hiring in the cafeteria, cleaners, like all of these people, right? Their numbers were completely different than the people I had that were doing occupational therapy, physical therapy, the people that were doing nursing, like everyone had a different funnel, but they also had goals to those funnels that they still had to meet. And if they didn't meet those, we were going to have the conversation about it. And again, not individually, we were having the conversation about it along with their peers in the same meeting, right? So they knew every single week, I got to come in and I got to be ready to have this conversation of why I had a great week, an average week, a bad week, whatever that might be. And I just don't think people do that. Again, it gets back, I think, Sam, to they feel like it's micromanaging.
And it all comes with the lens of how you approach it, because I get where there's this dichotomy between them, because oftentimes a lot of business results, when I look at business results, I'm thinking like we need to take a quarterly view, honestly, to understand meaningful like change in pipeline, revenue, all of that. But this is viewed not so much as you said. It's not, it's coaching. It's what do we need to tweak in terms of behaviors to help you get the results that we want to get long term. But you have to take this weekly short term lens so you can make those fine tuned adjustments to get to that.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I worked with the head of people at Rocket Mortgage, Jim Levinson, and he was actually asked by the CEO. He wasn't an HR guy. He wasn't a recruiting guy. He came out of their mortgage banking. He led mortgage banking sales for 13 years for them. And I got to actually meet him and spend some time with him in his first 90 days. He immediately saw like, this is kind of like a sales kind of thing, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, but no one measures anything here. Like, or they don't, or the measures don't really mean anything, like days to fill. He goes, I don't understand what this, I understand you want to hire people faster, but there's no correlation that you hired somebody faster, 37 days instead of 38 days. Like that's not an impact, right? Like if anything, the process is always going to take a certain amount of time. So you can only get so fast, no matter what, from that standpoint. So, that was one of those things where he was like, hey, it's a sales kind of activity. We should be measuring it and then also holding people accountable to like those sales kinds of activities. And if you don't, then what are you really doing? Like as a leader? Like, I mean, can you imagine if you were the head of any company, any Fortune 500 company that was leading sales, and you went to the CEO and said, we're going to measure stuff, but we're never going to talk about it to the salespeople. We're never going to have a goal on them. We're just going to let them go. And if they sell stuff, great. If they don't, you could go into any recruiting shop in the Fortune 500 and they have recruiters there that are like, I'm like, okay, what are you held accountable to? And they're just like, well, I have to do the job. Like I have openings and I have to try to send people. But like, if I don't fill a position this week, or if I don't fill that position, like no one's going to talk to me.
Yeah.
You're just like, holy crap. This is terrible.
Yeah, you want to talk about Wild West there. So, all right, let's get tactical. I think there's some really good things that we can pull out here. First one I want to touch on is, it's not micromanaging. A lot of people are going to think, well, it sounds an awful lot like it. So what would your advice be to a manager of a team who wants to implement this? How do they approach their team to share, I'm not micromanaging you? Like, what's that conversation look like?
The one advice I would give them first is measure your funnel before people know if you can, right? Don't tell people you're going to measure. Just start to measure individually, because the first time you tell them that you're going to measure publicly, all your data will jump 20 to 25% instantly, because now they're all afraid that they're being measured. But what you want is a baseline to know what's truly happening. And then incrementally, right, you actually might be able to ratchet that up a little bit more, but you want to know what's reality. And what I find is most TA leaders, HR leaders have no idea what the reality baseline is for their funnel. Yeah. And so I would say start there. And then the other piece of it is you have to consistently say and act in your actions that this is not a hammer. The week that you come back and you only found 3 people or 5 people for the hiring managers, I'm not going to yell at you. I really want to coach you and talk to you to figure out how can we help you be better? How can we help you find more? This is about development. Part of that development is I have to go to the recruiters and ask them like, okay, what's your view of success? And what does that look like? Right now, HR leaders and TA leaders have a bunch of people working for them as recruiters who are making really good salaries who don't want to recruit. They want to administer the recruiting process. They want to post jobs. They want to wait for people to apply. They want to screen those people and they want to send them on to a hiring manager. That is not recruiting. That's an administrative function that I could have literally a call center in another part of the world that pennies on the dollar do, or like, we're going to see in the next few years, AI will do that, 24/7. I don't need anybody to administer the process. I need people to actually recruit, and I'm going to help them do that for those who want to do it. But you have a lot of people on your team right now that don't want to recruit.
Yeah. So before we overly complicate it, what are like 2 to 4 of those metrics that they should be looking at? Like, are there any North Stars or ones that are more important than others?
No, so to me, there's like the common like ratios that you're looking at are the number of people, right? That somebody screens to send out. What I can't have is somebody go, oh, I screened 12 people and I sent 12 people. Like, there's no way that you actually just got lucky that week and found 12 great people to screen and you sent all 12, right? So I need a number of, there has to be there has to be some bait, like some slack in there where I go, okay, hey, I screened 20 and I sent 12. And then I want to go, out of the 12 I sent, how many of those turned into interviews? And then I should go, how many of those interviews turned into hires from there? We actually started measuring ghosting as well. So out of the interviews that should have taken place, how many actually happened? Because I do think sometimes our recruiters are moving too fast, and ghosting is happening because you don't have a great relationship with that candidate, and you didn't hear a red flag, or you didn't ask the right questions. Something's going on. And so we started to see, like, especially with younger recruiters or less experienced recruiters, this ratio of ghosting that was increasing. And so we had to slow them down and actually spend more time with the candidate. Sometimes you pull the interview back and say, and kind of make them come forward for it before you would actually give it to them.
I want to go one layer deeper here. I know we weren't
Yeah.
planning on it, but ghosting is something so many people talk about, and you've already hit 2 points, like why people do it. And you have the data, you've seen this more often.
Yeah.
So you're talking about, like, do they have the relationship developed? Are there red flags that they're missing? They're not asking questions. Like, what are a couple of things that you're often finding are reasons for this that people can think about? Okay, I need to ask better questions. I need to do X, Y, Z before. What are some of those?
Sometimes we get so excited as recruiters that we finally had someone say yes to us today, right? You went and tried to communicate with 25 people and it was no, no, no. And then finally Sam said, yes, I'm interested. And then, so we miss so many red flags of, well, are you currently interviewing? Yeah, by the way, I actually just had a final interview today. I expect an offer coming, right? And by the time your interview takes place, I'm probably already going to accept that offer. And then, but just in case that offer doesn't take place, I want to have a backup. Like, we don't dig into it. We just go, oh my gosh, great, I'm going to get you in by Friday. And we don't ask, like, hey, are you interviewing anywhere else? Do you have any offers pending? Like, why do you want to leave your current job? Like, all those things that you'd go, oh, I'm just looking for more money, or whatever. Like, again, and that's fine. Like, I mean, most people are not leaving jobs because they don't want more money. Everybody wants more money. But sometimes it's like, I want more money. And you're like, oh, cool. What does that look like? And it's like 50,000 more than I'm making now. You're like, okay, like, all right, you're looking, that's just not going to happen. That's not reality. The one thing we found, I think, that helps eliminate as much ghosting as possible is we've used, like, texting in kind of a nurture campaign when we have somebody. So let's say somebody is on a Monday, you've scheduling somebody for an interview on Friday. We would start sending out text messages, like, even right away on Monday, like maybe 2 hours after I talked to the candidate. I would just send a quick text message to say, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb, I forgot to write down the time I told you about the interview. Now, I know exactly when the interview is, right? But it's a call to action for them to respond, because if they won't respond to that right away, you have a red flag and you better get involved. Because what we find is hiring managers get really pissed off when they have an interview that doesn't show. They don't get upset with you when they have an interview that's on their calendar, but 2 days before or a day before or even 3 hours before, you tell them, hey, take that interview off your calendar. We're no longer going to work with that candidate, right? They're like, cool, no problem. When they're sitting there waiting and no one shows up, they get really upset. And they blame you, not the candidate. So then day 2, we might go, hey, just spoke to the hiring manager, and they just can't wait to see you, and they're just really excited. If you have any questions, let me know. Can't wait to see you on Friday. Boom, no call to action, just what it is. Wednesday, hey, can you just send me a picture of your driver's license or your ID? Our security team needs it for when you come in. Call to action. They don't really need it. Maybe they do. Who cares? Doesn't matter. I just need to create a call to action. Thursday, we might then send out something like, just maybe it's an interview tip or a dress code tip or something like that. Oh, hey, I forgot to talk to you. Don't worry about wearing a suit and a tie. Like, we're very casual, jeans, a polo, whatever. Like, that's going to be fine. No call to action. And then right before the interview, the day of the interview, we kind of have a really transparent kind of just come to Jesus conversation with them, which is, and again, this is all through text messaging. It's all automated, which is, hey, we understand life happens. And if you want to cancel the interview, or if you're not going to show for the interview today, if you could just let us know, we totally understand. You're not going to burn a bridge here. We just really would love to give that manager back their time on their calendar. So potentially somebody else could interview today. And we'll get about 10% of the people that will go, you know what, I just did accept an interview. Or they oh, yeah, I was going to come, but I have a sick kid today or whatever. Like all those excuses will start coming out, right? Of why. But at least we give them that opportunity to opt out at the last moment. Because so often, you'll get afterwards, you'll hear like, well, my car broke down. Like, 70% of interviewers have car trouble. Like that's what I know from my 25 years in HR. Like it's stupid.
It's only if you're on the way to interview that the car is going to break down.
Yes.
I love this. This texting sequence you just went through is a masterclass in itself. I mean, if people listen to one thing in this, like that,
Yeah.
you couldn't find that anywhere. And I
So
think,
Sam,
yeah.
let me follow up. So the one thing we did after, so we did this with for a number of times, and then we would send a survey out to these candidates afterwards and said, why did you show up to this interview? And they said, for the first time, I felt like I had a company that really wanted me because of the amount of like they were coming after them. Right. So it's this human, like deep emotion we have of wanting to be wanted that we're tapping into with that. And again, these candidates had no idea that they just thought that recruiter, by the way, in the nurture campaign, one of the text messages, depending on the timing we have and how many days, because we have one set up for if it's 2 days, 3 days, 7 days, 10 days, like we are literally sending them something every single day. But in that nurture campaign, if the longer it is, we might add in an email, we might add in actual text message from the hiring manager themselves, right? With a little video that just says, hey, here's one question I want you to be prepared for when you come to the interview. Stuff like that, right? Which is just, again, these people afterwards, like every comment was, I've never had a company come after me like this and want me.
Yeah. And this is something I keep coming back to. And I mean, this is an example of once you've established that relationship and everything, but the bar is so low with so many activities, whether it's outreach, and that's like sales, marketing, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, I mean, you get insert personalization half the time, that's even wrong. So people are immediately like, okay, they don't care. I'm just the number to them. But you text once you have the relationship. So that's not the spur to like get on the call. It's like, hey, I'm really excited. It's what I almost distilled down from is you use this like prompted engagement to keep them responding to you. And that further, makes them feel invested in, feel valuable and everything else. And I mean, that it makes sense. And that's something that when you take a step back and put yourself in their shoes, it's 100% like that's what I would want to experience. But so often we get in our own heads as recruiters and think like, I just need to get like 50 texts out today, 100 emails out, that you don't think about the end user experience for 2 seconds. And it's automated. You've got that all set up, but they don't know that, because if they do reply, you're then replying manually back. So it does have that good balance of automate the things that I want to stay ahead of, but then I'll engage with them on a one-to-one level when they come back.
The one big thing I'll get out in the funnel conversation with recruiters, especially, it's this quantity versus quality aspect, which I call bullshit every time. I go, look, it's not about quantity or quality. It's about both. I expect both. You need to have both to be good here. One is, I've never met one good recruiter that would ever send a bad candidate to a hiring manager because it reflects on them. So don't give me the quality aspect. Every single recruiter I have only sends good quality candidates. They only send a candidate that, now the candidate might show up and be a piece of garbage, right? But there was something in there that they felt like, no, this is going to be a good candidate. And they truly believed it was going to be high quality. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to be high quality, but they never send bad quality candidates. Now, I've had bad recruiters I've fired who sent garbage just to show like, oh, I'm sending people so I won't get fired. And you got fired because you sent bad quality people. Like it comes out in the wash, right?
This has been a masterclass. Like, I'm already excited. We're gonna have part 2, part 3, part 4. Just I'm gonna make a segment. I might have to, I said shows within a show. I'm just gonna have, like we have Matt's mic drops. We're gonna have Tim's, I don't know, I'll come up with some witty, like something else that starts with a T. Tim talk. I'm sure you watch Tim talk. But yeah, we'll definitely come back for more of these. I mean, I'm new to this space and I've learned a lot already here. So I can't imagine how valuable this will be to anyone that listens and watches. So I'm excited. You're clearly a boatload of wisdom. Where else are you sharing insights? I know you've got a handful of places that you're posting thoughts, but like, where would you recommend people go to continue to hear these?
Yeah, timsackett.com. You can follow me, connect with me on LinkedIn. I do, those are probably the 2 biggest kind of areas. I tell people you can Google Tim Sackett. I'm probably the first 100 pages based on my SEO. There's me. There's a truck driver chaplain in Minneapolis that's named Tim Sackett. I think I stole all of his SEO. He's probably really upset. I always tell people it'd be amazing if I was the same guy. Like during the week, he's this recruiting expert, and then in the weekends, he's the truck driver chaplain. I'm not the same guy, but we'll do segment 2, and we'll talk about the importance of capacity within the funnel, right? And recruiting capacity, because I think that's really important from a leadership standpoint. We have too many leaders who are using the strategy of, yep, we'll work 24/7, we'll work harder, when in the reality, they should be metrics driven. They should be able to go to the CEO and CFO and say, yes or no, we can make this happen, and here's exactly why. And we should talk about capacity the next time we get on this.
Perfect. Well, you heard it here. Stay tuned for that. Tim, this has been, as I said, incredible. I've already learned so much. So thank you for taking the time to come and join us on the show today. Really appreciate you sharing this knowledge with us. And I know it's going to inspire recruiters, managers, everyone to start incorporating some of this in their day-to-day. So everyone, that's it. That's a show. This is a wrap with Tim. Until next time.